Hey guys, JJ here, back again for another Wednesday of Zoom Networking. Want to thank you guys for joining us. We got a really good turnout today. I'm really pleased. Our guest speaker today is just a young man that I just hold in the greatest admiration. Um, you know, Real estate's all about relationships, and we're going to resonate with some people, and some people we won't resonate with. Some people will resonate with us, and others won't. In this case, it's a young man that for whatever reason, I just think he's a heck of a great guy. Pleased to call him my friend. He's out of Pace Morby Sub 2 community. He's definitely highly respected. Everybody loves this guy. He started as a student, became an investor, an entrepreneur, a successful real estate investor now. And he's a father, he's a husband, he's a family man, and heck of a great first baseman. My good friend Daric Barton. Daric, how are you?
I'm great. I actually just got back right before this from a hitting lesson with a 9-year-old kid. So, getting back into the batting cage gives me a lot of joy. And then obviously, I've learned through Pace that if you're not sharing your knowledge with other people, then you're cheating other people. So, getting back into giving lessons to kids and kind of just enjoying my time in the cage.
That's awesome. And again, that's another commonality that we have is I've been volunteering for years to coach kids in baseball. I always did the 11, 12-year-old age group. We talked about this the other day. Parents are like, how come you're not moving up? I've always done 11, 12-year-olds because I say they're big enough to play the game and small enough not to give me crap. But there's nothing more enjoyable than working with kids, teaching them teamwork, teaching the all-star kids to help the kids that are coming up behind them, teaching the kids that are learning the game that they can fulfill a role on the team as well. And if they all work together, they can all win. And I think that's similar with us as real estate investors. Those of us that are really successful can fill a role and help those that are coming up behind them. And even though some of us are new, and I still put myself in that category, we can still fulfill a role to help other people. And that's what that's about. Hey, really quick, for those that don't know you, Daric, where in the country are you located?
I am in the beautiful waterless state of Arizona, Phoenix area. I think you have more water in that picture than we have in our whole state. I'm in Phoenix. I grew up in Orange County, grew up in Huntington Beach. I've been out here a little over 4 years now. Couldn't be happier. Obviously, the summers are tough, but yeah, we're investing. We were investing nationwide, real estate wise, but we've since moved on to business acquisitions. So we're focusing on that first. But Phoenix.
Yeah, that's something I've looked into as well. There's, opportunities always present themselves. It's just a matter of how we choose to go about taking them on. I always talk about the fact that as real estate investors, business investors, we all get started at a different time, a different place. I like to try and discover the commonality that we all have with one another. And I ask people, like, for example, we're driving at 16, we're voting at 18, we're able to buy an alcoholic beverage at the age of 21. But I get curious sometimes, what do we have in common with the other investors that are out there? So I ask, I'll ask you, what were you doing at 16, 19, 21 in your 20s? Was real estate something that was presenting itself to you? Was it actively there? Or was it something you found later? And if it was something you found later, what were you doing from your teens on maybe into your 20s?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household, and so I was not exposed to any sort of business type acumen when I was young. All I focused on was from the time I was two, I played baseball. I never played another sport. My mom was single when I was growing up, and so all our free time was basically put on the baseball field. And then obviously, if you don't know, I played professional baseball for a living for 16 years. And so after high school, I got drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals when I was 17 years old. So my mom had to help sign my contract with me because I wasn't technically an adult. So I shipped off at 17 to go play baseball, and from a guy that's never done my own laundry or cooked my own meals. I was sent off to kind of fend for myself. And luckily I had some good teammates who were older who took me under their wing and kind of kicked my ass and taught me how to be a professional as a young adult. And so the real estate stuff didn't come until like the last 2 years. And so it's all been new. It's been a learning experience. It's not easy. If anyone tells you it's easy, they're lying. But you definitely have to learn through experiencing it.
And now, as you went forward with your career, and you had a solid career, of any length, I'm sure that there's, for every player that gets to the major leagues, there's a million people that wish they did. And so that's quite an accomplishment. And I take my hat off to you, because I like to think I've been an athlete most of my life. And I just know the dedication that it takes to get there. And it's not always easy to do that. And I think sometimes some of those hurdles, help, I'll just say, you guys through other aspects of your life when you can apply it. So when you got into real estate, you already had the kids were already coming about when you got in here. How did you find out about real estate investment? How did it become aware of you, something you want to consider? And we're both in Sub 2. Did you find out about Sub 2 and then think about real estate, or did you start thinking about real estate and then discover Sub 2? How did that go?
So long story short, basically I retired in 2018, sat around for 2.5 years, kind of having an identity crisis, not knowing who I was or what I was going to do in the future. And so I knew after sitting around for a few years, I was not showing my kids any sort of discipline or work ethic or anything that I believe a father should be showing their children. And I was spending a lot of money, which is not good, right? So you're spending a lot and not making anything, because I was retired thinking, I was thinking I made enough in my career to be okay for a while, which would have been the case if I hadn't put all my money in the stock market. And the stock market during the last couple of years obviously has fluctuated. So the combination of all of that, I knew I needed to get back into making money somehow. My wife works in real estate development, and her goal was to build a real estate portfolio.
Of course.
I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but I was like, okay, cool. Well, if I don't really know what I want to do, maybe I can help my wife achieve what she wants to do. Stumbled across a Pace Sunday service one night, and I watched a lot of YouTube, and I've watched live videos, and nobody ever responds to the live chat, right? It's always like bots and all those things. So I threw a random question out there, and Pace, sees it, and he responds to it and he answers it. I'm like, that's weird. Like, why is this guy looking at the chat? Another question, same thing. He did it. So I'm like, wow, this is weird. This guy actually pays attention. So they steered me into the free group at that time. And I put more feelers out. And so ended up probably a month or two later, talking to Kevin Cho and another guy by the name of Carlos Ruiz. And it was basically Carlos that told me, hey, look, this will probably be one of the better investments you'll make because of the opportunities in there. At that time, there were less than 3,000 people. So I ended up betting on myself and joining. Like most people, I drank from a fire hose for the first 3, 4, 5 months. Okay. And I didn't do anything because I was trying to understand it all. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then here we are a year and a half later, and through trial and tribulations, we've done some good things. We've had some negative things happen, but you can't stop, because if you quit, you lose.
Yeah, no, you're so true in that. It's a number of I don't know what you call them, sayings or whatever, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And in the marathon, you're going to pick up speed, you're going to slow down speed, but as long as you keep going, you don't quit. As long as you've not quit, it's not over. And you know, real estate is not easy. There's no guarantee. There's always risk involved. And I think the hardest part is to we want to protect our assets. Yet we also need to some extent put ourselves out there. It's finding that midway point. We were talking about your topic. It's about joint venturing to some extent, and by being a private money lender, I'm also a private money lender, and the hardest part of everything is who we going to do business with. Whether it's just as a lender or joint venturing with someone. We got some folks on the call right now that are newer investors. Probably have people watching on YouTube right now in the recording after the fact when we're home playing with our kids or our dog or whatever it happens to be, but are also newer investors. When one is a new investor and wants to get into maybe being a private money lender, from your experiences, what are a couple of the things that one needs to be aware of, or possibly just watch out for, which is maybe the same thing?
I would say private money lending is a business all in itself. Some people make it seem that anybody could just lend their money out. Theoretically, yes, you can. But should you? Probably not, because we're not taught the proper ways to lend our money out securely. Now, you can watch some videos and you can talk to other people, but realistically, lending is a business. And if you don't have the proper protections in place, and I'll say this from experience, I'm out over $100,000 because the deal itself was good, right? But it was the person that I loaned the money to who failed to perform. And so you can do all the underwriting of the deal that you want, but unless that person who has your money is a person of integrity and honesty and transparency and everything it takes, you would think, to borrow somebody's money, right, to put into a project so everybody could win, I would say always lend to the person and have somebody else, multiple people that have vetted that person. Ask for references.
Oh yeah.
And not just like people that they borrowed money from, but people that they've worked with, right? I know they're doing something now where Melissa Palmer will do a background check on somebody. That's great. And, I recommend her service because I think that's important. But I don't think that's the end all be all. I do think there's a lot more due diligence that you have to do vetting the person. Because people don't care for your money like you would care for your money.
And like you and I were talking the other day, as far as doing a background check on someone, that's all fine and dandy. But if they don't have an arrest record, they've not been charged with petty theft or grand theft auto, that's still not a clear indication of what kind of person they are. It just means that if anything, they've not been caught.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing something wrong. I get asked all the time. When I started years ago, I had a friend of mine reach out to me and say, there's a young man in Minnesota that's got a pretty good opportunity for investment. Opportunity is actually in Los Angeles. It's purchase price of about just under 600,000, and the ARV is 1.1 million, and his expenses are going to be about 250. He's going to make about another 250, 300,000 on this project, and he's looking for a private money lender. Would you like to talk to him? Sure, I'll talk to him. And then at the time, I had a private money lender. I was not yet lending, but my buddy calls me back 10 minutes later, and he says, well, I just talked to the young man. He told me, don't tell JJ the numbers. Well, really? Okay, so the guy calls me up and he asks for a private money lender. He says, can you connect me with your private money lender? I said, yeah, I can connect you. He says, okay, what do we need to do? I said, well, it's going to be pretty simple. We pay your hard money lender, we pay the private money lender, and you and I split the profit. And he's like, yeah, no, it's not what I was thinking. I said, what were you thinking? Now, obviously, we're not thinking the same thing. He said, well, I was thinking of a finder's fee. Now, supposedly, I don't know how much he's going to be making.
Right.
Right. So, what are you going to give me a $5,000 finder's fee? Well, $200,000. That's ridiculous. And what I ended up telling the guy, we went our different ways, but I said, no one's going to give you the private. For those of you that are looking for a private money lender, no one's going to give you their private money lender. A private money lender is a personal relationship that an investor has with someone else because there's trust there. There's an established relationship there. No one's going to give you the private money lender. If you're looking to just go and find a lender, then you're looking for a hard money lender, and you're going to be paying points up front. You're going to have monthly interest, and they're going to do a full cavity search of not only the deal but of who you are. But the key to finding private money relationships, and I'll talk about that as we get back to Daric, is really, and Daric touched on this, you're lending to the person. It's building that relationship. Daric, what do you think are some of the challenges and I'll just ask you this way, in finding those relationships, building those relationships? I mean, obviously, people are out there asking for private money lenders. Are there any criteria you would suggest that someone that has the money to lend look at when people are approaching them? And you mentioned part of that, references,
Now for me, I don't do lending much, if at all, anymore. However, if I were to do it, I want to lend to somebody who actually has money. I know that sounds weird, right? Because a lot of people at least that I've seen, don't have money. And, they want to borrow money. Well, the problem is if they don't pay you back or if they don't perform, there's nothing for you to go after. And unfortunately, that has to be a part of your thought process is, okay, well, what's the collateral, right? Yeah. So if they're not willing to put something up of probably greater value, because it's going to cost you money in order to get your money back, if that's the case, why would I have confidence in you performing if you're not willing to risk something of greater value?
Huge.
But other than that, like making friends, and it's like, again, it's a business, right? So there are people that do it properly and that secure it properly, but 98% of people that are lending don't know how to do it properly because we're not private money lenders. We're just people that have capital that we want to grow it. And when I first got in, the only way that I thought I could provide value was by lending my money out, which has led us to where we are in this conversation as JV'ing by being a private money partner, right? And so now I have no interest in lending anybody money. I will partner with people, but then I also get equity of the property and I get ownership and we do everything together and I don't have to depend on them.
And then your financial investment also gives you a return.
That's right.
Cynthia, you're on with Daric Barton. What's your question?
Okay, I want to say thank you for your wealth of knowledge here. And thank you, JJ, for the platform all the time. So I'm not going to tell you where I heard don't have an interest just in being a private money lender, but get yourself into the deal with equity. So what do you consider fair? Because I had a property and I opened it up to equity. And I'm just going to be honest. I thought the sub two people that came to me to come in was greedy as HELL. And I had to tell them this ain't the deal for me. But I was open for equity. Let's do it. I didn't find this damn apartment to have you eat 80% of it in equity. Go to hell. Excuse my language. But that's what I felt because I thought they was greedy as hell. Talk to me. What you feel about it? Because you might be walking in that same kind of footstep. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Sounds greedy to me.
But
here's the thing, right? So people ask me all the time, what's fair? What makes sense to you? it's your money, right?
I
Or
was
it's your deal.
Yeah, I was up
And
under a coach, and the coach told me don't give up more than 30% equity. Anything else, they biting on your butt.
so it depends on the responsibilities of the people, right? Like who's doing what is, you have to spell out everything, especially in a partnership. It's not just hey, unless this is what you guys decided on, I'm going to give you money and then I'm hands off, right? Like all this has to be discussed and based off of what each individual's um job is. Like for instance, I only have 30% equity in a certain property, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
just the private money, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
brought the money in, somebody else manages the asset, and then somebody else operates the house.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I was okay with that because of the agreement. I don't have to do anything other than bring my money in.
And have your hand out to get to get a payoff at the end. But this is what I found also is that majority of the sub two people wanted to stay in the deal. Okay, you might make $150,000 doing nothing but bringing equity. Your equity, you're a credit equity partner, and you want to stay in the deal. The deal is not here for me 5 years from now. Turn around and I'm still in the bed with you because I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it to be in the bed with you forever. I just thought that that whole mentality by more than one person was just so greedy.
I don't know the context to the deal.
It's just I need a credit equity partner. We got the property. I have the professional general contractor team. You want to vet them, you can if you want. We got a project manager. At the time, I didn't have one. Now I got a project manager who's bringing another team. This is 24 units. This is big. It's in a rough area, but we got a security team, and that's going to accelerate us to finish this project fast. It's in a good location that's undergoing a facelift. It's undergoing gentrification. So it is what it is. But I just thought the sub two people were just overly biting, over biting.
Yes, I mean it's not just sub two, it's everybody, right? So
Nah, it was primarily sub two. I mean, but that's the Astro sub two. So I was in that environment. They was throwing forwarding the property in that environment. So that's who was mostly communicating back with me. I wasn't really in a lot of other platforms.
yeah, look, it has to make sense for you. If it doesn't make sense for you, say no, tell them
That's
what
it.
makes sense for you. And then, have that line in the sand. Say, this is what I'm willing to give up. I'm not giving any more. This is what I'm offering. This is what I need. Now, you also have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, am I asking for something that warrants giving up more equity? Are they a credit partner and a capital partner? Or are they just bringing the money? Are they charging interest and equity? Like there's so many different nuances to it. It's all in how you want to structure it. If it's your deal and you're the one borrowing the money, you just tell them what you are willing to do.
At the time, it was, and it still is, it was a collateral loan with the private lender slash hard money lender. Many of the hard money lenders that call themselves private lenders really have a disguise on. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it was. So they just needed to bring the credit equity part. Everything else, at the end, they received the bonus. Brought
Okay,
more cash to the table. I discussed this with Brian Fine and many other mentor coaches.
Cynthia, I think Daric kind of hit it on the nail when he said that you need to understand what you want, what you're willing to give, what you're not willing to give. As he said, we don't understand the specifics of this particular deal, but
Yeah.
it's obviously a great example is that as we encounter more and more experiences and opportunities and situations, we're going to get a feel for what we like and don't like and where we want to draw that line.
Mhm.
So, Daric, does that am I kind of hitting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
agree with that.
look, if anybody comes in and I'm looking for money and they're telling me they want 80% of the deal just to lend me money, clearly I'm going to say no. I'm like,
Absolutely.
I mean, unless, I don't have to do anything else other than bring the deal, right? If I just lock up the deal and say, hey, who wants to do everything else, right? You manage everything else and do everything else, and I'll just sit back. I mean, then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, is it worth it just finding the deal to get whatever the equity is? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of details that I don't know in this particular deal. So, but 80% seems steep for anybody.
Shemaine, you are on with Daric Barton. What's your question?
Hey, Daric. Hey, JJ. You mentioned that kind of when you started out in real estate, at first the only way you felt you could provide value was by giving your money away. What I might consider that a limiting belief, or maybe you would consider that a limiting belief of yours at the time, just with what you knew. That was the asset you had, and that was what a lot of people needed. When did that start to shift from you? Like, at what point did you kind of realize, like, oh, I do have more to give, or you kind of found something else? And if you did find that, like, what is that now? Is it like the content, or just like providing value through like education?
Full transparency, I had a lot of money out. I still have a lot of money out in deals, and I was forced to find ways to bring value because your money will run out. I don't have any more money to throw into deals because the money that I have in deals is not bringing much of a return, right? And so for me, it was like forced. I'm like, I can no longer put my money into deals, real estate deals, right? I'm putting it into the businesses because now that I know a little bit more, I had it backwards. First, I need a lot of cash, and then I can invest in real estate, in my head. But then it was realizing the resources that I have, right? I've built relationships with people now within the community. I know people, I've met people investing outside the community. And I just feel like there's a bigger picture when you're able to understand that you don't need physical things to provide value. Like, you can know one person, and that one person can be the only person that you need to know that connects you to everybody else. So depending on what your end goal is, and again, you have to know what your end goal is. I've chased every shiny object, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Okay, because I came in as a dumb jock, not understanding what real estate was, not really having a plan or a goal of what I want to achieve. So anything, I just wanted to make money. It didn't matter how. So lending was the first quickest way. It was also the quickest way to lose money. So that's why lending is very, very sensitive. It's not. I mean, this is why I don't lend anymore. And so the biggest thing was not having any more money to lend out because I didn't trust anybody with my money anymore. I was let down too many times. So now it's like, okay, well, how can I provide value to somebody else and get into deals? So now I can bring money from the outside, still as a private money partner, right? And have them be paid interest. You just have to find people that aren't like real estate investors in our group, because like the last lady was saying, everybody wants huge chunks if they lend you money, because that's what PACE teaches.
Right. With the gator and everything, it's like the returns are insane. I'm like 30% on these short-term things. I'm like, it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. But I guess it's working.
Yeah, no, it's if you do it properly, yeah, it definitely works. If you want the deal done and you don't have any other options, there's two things. One, you can either borrow my money for this price, or you need to go network with JJ's people more and
Right.
meet more private money lenders.
What was your, with all those deals? I don't want to ask a bunch of questions, but just one more follow up to that, if that's okay. What, with the deals going sour and like you talked about people having integrity and like lending to the person, um, more so than the actual deal. Like, yeah, well, ultimately this person has to, click the button on in Chase to get you your money back and to make your monthly payments and to, do the bookkeeping and whatever, and to actually get the job done if they're an operator. If there was like three things that you would say like look out or watch out for, like just immediate tells. I mean, I guess if you have a good judge of character, it's probably easy. But I would have guessed that you would have had a good judge of character. Being you're successful, you've had experience. Like, did you not have a good judge of character? You just didn't know what you were getting into, or like you just didn't know the tells that might have now you would recognize.
Everybody will tell you what you want to hear until they get what they want. They will be so precise and so communicative, and everything will be great until they get your money. Once they get your money, now this isn't everybody. This is just my bad experiences. Once they get your money, the tells then start happening, or started to happen to me. The communication was lacking. There wasn't transparency. There was no honesty as to actually how the project was going. There was a lot of excuses, kick the can down the road. By that time, it's too late, right? You already gave them your money. And I thought I had vetted it because I had asked people that I had trusted, the few people that I knew, that I respected, that knew these people. I'm not going to say they vouched for them, but they said, yeah, he's a good person. He does, a lot of flips, and, he's been successful. I don't know what happened. I did as much as I thought I could, right? But what I did not do is I didn't ask for like people that he had worked with in the past.
References.
I didn't ask his partners, his previous lenders. I didn't do that. I didn't know to do that because I trusted certain people's opinions on them, and that was my mistake. And so I have to fess up and take accountability in saying that I didn't do my proper due diligence, right? Like, we don't have enough accountability in here. People need to be held accountable, including ourselves, right? When we have to admit when we do things wrong and learn from it and help others. And Wesley Grant is a much, much smarter lender than I am. Like, if anybody has lending questions, I'll refer people to Wesley Grant, because this is what he's done for a long time, right? And so he understands the process and the securities.
Cool. Thank you, Daric.
Yeah, of course.
Going back to what you just said, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's about getting to know the person. It's about getting those references, doing due diligence. I've seen it myself. People want your money, and they're nice and they're communicative and they're there, but as soon as they have it, it's like they don't return phone calls, they're not reachable. It's like, hey, what's going on? And one of the things I constantly say in our networking group is chase a relationship, don't chase a deal. Build your network before you need it. Get to know who you could possibly one day be doing business with. And
Yeah.
that couldn't be more important. Randy, send that you are on with Daric Barton. What's your question?
Right. Hey, appreciate you guys, and thanks for sharing your story, Daric. Curious if obviously you went from the sports into the real estate. Can you give a little insight what the beginning stages looked like for you? If you were doing wholesale, looking for rental properties, what markets, what kind of things were you doing around that? And then sounds like you've pivoted. Now you're going after looking for the business opportunities that are out there. So I'm curious what that looks like for you now. So you mentioned that you were, buying nationwide. You've focused and niched down into Arizona. What are you looking for in a business? I guess kind of like, what's the buy box? What type of business? Kind of the revenue threshold, some of that stuff that you're thinking about, and how you're going about actually finding these business opportunities to buy into.
Yeah. So when I first started, I drank the Kool-Aid, right? I downloaded the batch leads. I downloaded the dialer. I downloaded those things. I hired a VA. Our VA quit within 2 weeks, right? And for me, I came in knowing I wanted to buy properties, but I had no idea what that entailed. So we tried the VA for a couple of weeks. She quit on us. After that, I was like, screw it. I'll just buy deals from people. Well, needless to say, wholesalers never, at least from my experience, the deals at that time starting last year were very few and far between. And if they had them, they were crap. Or if they had good ones, they already had their special friends that they would sell them to.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had to build better relationships with some of these wholesalers if I wanted to do that. Well, I suck at networking. I'm not like, I haven't learned how to be intentional. And this is where JJ comes in, and he's very good at being intentional with networking. So it led me to essentially looking for leaders in the community who I thought were doing things at a higher level to start partnering with. And so that's when I started getting into the partnership stuff, because the lending stuff clearly was not working out very well. So I started partnering with them on deals, and we've got a couple in Colorado, Arizona, Alabama, and then I'm doing a flip in Florida. And I had a goal of just doing wraps this year. Well, I found out real quickly that wraps are not easy, nor are they quick. And in order to do wraps, I do believe you have to have capital yourself to be able to plan if there are any, if there's an extended period of time that you're still looking for buyers, which seems to be very common.
Yep.
So I'd stay away from wraps myself moving forward because of the time commitment it takes. So it led me to realizing, this is when I started talking to Wesley Grant. This was probably just a few months ago. And I understood that he was looking to buy businesses, but not as somebody who's looking to buy and operate, just as an equity investor. Right. And so once I understood the concept that I could provide money to help somebody else buy a business, still be hands off, and get 20% equity of a business just by being able to provide capital and the ability to get the principal back within 2 years, that's what I started focusing on. And for me, I don't have the skills or the background to run these businesses, but other people do, right? So now you got Carl Allen's group, who has a network of people who have run businesses or who were in that particular industry for a living, who can take over these businesses and run them. So now I'm in the process of, okay, I don't know how to underwrite these deals, right? I don't know how to look at a P&L or financial statements. So now I'm going to have to lean on other people to help me look at the financials to understand whether or not, one, is the business good, and two, can I find somebody who will actually operate the business? So nothing is as easy as it sounds, but I do think the benefits and the cash flow on businesses for myself is the right play for where I'm at in my life. And then the real estate may come later when the cash flow is better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am now. Is I invested in Carl and a couple of his partners, Ross Turner. They have an investment that I invested in. And again, I'm now always looking at the jockey, right? I want the best jockey that I can find. Somebody that can ride that horse better than anybody else, that's been doing it for years and years and years. Because if I'm bringing money, I want somebody to protect it.
Daric, man, just dropping some real nuggets on partnership, on the private money aspect, not just being a private money lender, but being a private money partner. And then, of course, as you said, building relationships, networking with intention. And that has a lot to do with discovering who the people are that we will, in essence, one day possibly be doing business with. I think it's huge. what I'd like to do, we've been going quite a while here. Want to kind of wrap it up, but I want to ask you two more questions before we close up. One, if people want to connect with you, they want to ask you more about lending or some of your tips and tricks or your experiences, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Instagram is probably the best way. And then my cell phone. If you send me a text and let me know who you are, I will probably respond. I screen my calls if I don't have your number, so I probably won't pick up the phone. But yeah, I mean, it's I believe there needs to be more transparency about the good and the bad that happen in all walks of life, but especially because this is a real estate investing world. I do believe there needs to be more transparency about the bad things because bad things happen often.
Yeah.
And they're not always preventable, but a lot of times they are. And so especially if you have some capital that you're looking to put into real estate or businesses, it's true when they say only invest an amount that you're willing to lose, because you will lose eventually if you do it long enough. And that's okay, because the more you do it, the more you will learn, sometimes the hard way, like myself. But I don't regret it, right? Like, it led me to where I am today. It led me down different paths. It led me to not wanting to lend anymore. It led me to, realizing that for me, buying businesses is going to be more beneficial right now of where I'm at in my life. And yeah, reach out. I mean, I don't know a lot about lending, but I have learned that being a partner in deals is much more beneficial for me as somebody that wants to own property. If you want to own property, being a private money partner is very fruitful, but it has to be with the right partner.
Yeah, that's couldn't be better said. It couldn't be better. I agree with you entirely. I mean, I really want to thank you for being with us today. Hey, I have one last question. I think we've kind of touched on it through the call, out the call a little bit, but there's a multitude of real estate education platforms out there, programs people can buy into. Of course, Sub2 is one of them. There's a whole bunch of them. And each of these programs has a Facebook page for their membership community. Each of these groups has brand new investors and experienced investors coming to these programs. Some of them have experience with Facebook. Some of them do not. They're told, create a Facebook page and join our community. As people join these education communities and they come to Facebook and create a profile and start to build their business by buying into the curriculum and taking on the education of learning the functions of a transaction, beyond the technical aspect, what is the importance of networking to the success of someone's business, whether they're new or experienced? And what is the importance of joining maybe a networking group like mine to the success of someone's business?
Coming from somebody who was really bad at networking and still learning how to network with intention, it's the most cliche, one of the most cliche things when they say your network is your net worth. It sounds silly, but it's so true. We don't make money by ourselves. It always takes another person, right? And so as uncomfortable as it is, you have to talk to other people. Like, the reason I like JJ and how adamant he is about actually getting to know somebody before he allows them to be his friend on Facebook is because there's so many fake personas out there to where, again, you have no idea who they are, but they want to be your friend. Why? I don't know. Maybe because they want a bigger friends list. But with JJ and his group, like, he makes it a point to, hey, look, I actually really want to know you. I want to know who you are, not just because I want to screen you, because I, meaning JJ, is the master networker. JJ probably knows any person that you need to know to have a successful business. Like that is what he does. And everybody else can replicate that, maybe not to his extent because he's very good at it. But even if you take one person a week to actually say, "Hey, I would like to just have a conversation to see what you're about." Like Mr. Jim Mullinex and I are going to get together here in the next couple of weeks, maybe have dinner, maybe talk about potential doing business in the future. Like I'm not used to doing that with people. It's not normal for me. But I know if I want to feed my kids, I'll have to at some point. So don't make it about you. Find somebody else to make it about and do it for them.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome, and thank you so much for your acknowledgement, and for sharing your story, your experience, and being with us. I say it all the time. We can go to these education programs, doesn't matter which one it is, and get the education, but most of this education, it's obtainable at the public library, on Google, YouTube University. Pace has many YouTube presentations on his free YouTube channel that we can learn. But the biggest wealth, the biggest gold nugget, the biggest value take away from any education program are the people and the relationships that are available to you. And if you're in these programs and you're not making real, true life, genuine relationships, surrounding yourself with people that you know true to be, you are wasting your time. It's about the relationship. It's about the people you surround yourself with, and more importantly, the people you get to know. And I'm just going to throw one out there. There's a lot of people that present themselves to be wonderful. They have got big followings, but a couple of them have, shown me that they're not exactly who they present themselves to be. And all we can do is learn by our experiences, as Daric has, as I have, and continue to put one foot in front of the next, continue to go forward. And it's these experiences that make Daric a better investor. It's these experiences that make me a better investor. The more you experience, the more you learn. And with the networking, the more people you talk to, the more opportunity you have to learn from their wins and their losses. We're going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen. How do you minimize your mistakes? Is by building a strong base around you that can help you to walk a straighter path. So if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, please like Daric's video. Please click the little like button. It's really going to help us out. It's going to help Daric out. Please put in the comments your takeaways on what you found to be valuable from the conversation today. If you guys are on the call today or watching on YouTube University or whatever that happens to be, remember, the best way to reach Daric is going to be through his Instagram page. And again, I will share that page for you guys if you haven't already seen it. But again, the best way to get a hold of Daric, follow him on Instagram, guys. Let's give him more followers and support him. If you guys want to connect with me, the best way to connect with me is go to my webpage, jjzizin.com. Click the little pulsating register now button. Join the group. Send me a Facebook message. Text me. My phone number's out there. But more importantly, build your own relationships. Make yourself visible. Reach out to people. Network with intention. 90 to 95% of any group is invisible. Don't be invisible. If you're not memorable, you're forgettable. I promise you. So with that, I want to thank you guys. You want to find Daric, you can follow him on Instagram. Find me on my website. And Daric, we'll see them down the line, right?
That's right, brother. Yeah. If anybody has any more questions or whatever, anything, just reach out to me. I mean, people want to help you, but they won't know unless you ask.
Very well said. Thanks, guys. If you're on the call right now, guys, don't go away. We're going to go to breakout room, some live networking. Thank you all so much.